Section 2.4, Addition of Fractions and Mixed Numbers. Let's start by talking about fractions that have the same denominator. For example, if I asked you to add 2/7 to 3/7, your answer is 5/7. Or 1/8 plus 5/8 gives us 6/8. 6/8, by the way, can be further simplified or reduced. We end up with 3/4 if we divide the numerator and denominator by 2. The rules for adding and subtracting fractions is, first, you either add or subtract the numerators, depending on if you're adding or subtracting. But the biggest rule of all is that when you're adding or subtracting fractions, the denominator stays the same. So if we go back up to number 1, notice that the 7 in our final answer remained 7. We did not add 7 plus 7 to get 14. Same with 1/8 plus 5/8. Our answer was 6/8, not 6 over 8 plus 8, which is 16. Now you try some. Number 1, 5/18 plus 7/18. We're going to add the numerators only. So 5 plus 7, which gives us 12, over the same denominator, 18. So 12 over 18. And notice that the final answer is actually 2/3 because 12 and 18 are both divisible by 6. So we end up with 2 over 3. Number 2, 3/8 plus 7/8. Add the numerators. 3 plus 7, we end up with 10, and 8, the denominator stays the same. So we have 10/8, which is reduced to 5/4 if we divide the numerator and denominator by 2. Let's talk now about fractions that have different or unlike denominators. For example, 1/2 plus 1/3. Please note that 1/2 plus 1/3 does not equal 2 over 5. You cannot simply add the numerators and add the denominators. What you have to do is find the least common denominator between 2 and 3. This is also known as the LCD. The least common denominator is represented the same way as a least common multiple. In this particular case, the LCD between 2 and 3 is 6. Going back to what we know about LCMs, or in this case LCDs, we write out the multiples of each number. So for 2, we have 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, etc. And for 3, we have 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, etc. The least common denominator, or least common multiple, between 2 and 3 is indeed 6. And just remember, you want to use the larger of the two numbers to get to the multiple or the denominator quickly. Once you know your LCD, you want to write equivalent fractions for both 1/2 and 1/3. Starting with 1/2, we want to multiply the 2 by 3 to get to the LCD 6. Whatever we do to the bottom, we have to do the same exact thing to the top. So 1 times 3 and 2 times 3. We end up with an equivalent fraction of 3 over 6. In terms of 1/3, we want to multiply the 3 by 2 and therefore the 1 by 2. So we end up with 2 over 6. Now we are ready to add. We have 3/6 plus 2/6. And again, the only numbers you add are the numerators. So 3 plus 2 over the LCD 6. So our final answer is 5 over 6. Example 1. Add 7/9 plus 11/15. We must find the LCD between 9 and 15. Let's focus on the larger of the two numbers, 15. The LCD is 45. The multiples of 15 are 15, 30, 45, 60, and so on. 45 is the lowest number, or lowest multiple, I should say, that works for both 9 and 15. The next step is to write equivalent fractions for both 7/9 and 11/15. We need to transform 9 into 45 by multiplying it by 5. Whatever we do to the bottom, we must do to the top of the fraction. So we end up with 35 over 45. In terms of 11/15, we have to multiply 15 by 3 to get to 45. Again, whatever we do to the bottom, we have to do the same thing to the top. So we end up with 33 over 45. Now we are ready to add our equivalent fractions. We have 35 plus 33, which gives us 68 over the LCD, which is 45. Our final answer is 68 over 45, and that is actually in simplest form. There are no common factors other than 1 between 68 and 45. Example 2. Find the sum of 5/12 and 9/16. The word sum means to add the two numbers and get a result from your addition. Again, we have to find the LCD because 12 and 16 are unlike denominators. Use the larger of the two numbers, 16. Do multiples of it. So 16, 32, 48, 64, and so on. And notice that 48 is the first common multiple, or the least common multiple, between 12 and 16. The next step is to write equivalent fractions. Starting with 5/12, we have to multiply by 4 over 4, so that we end up with a denominator of 48. So we end up with 20 over 48. In terms of 9/16, we have to multiply by 3 over 3, so that we end up with 48 as our denominator. So we end up with 27 over 48. Now we are ready to add. 20 plus 27 gives us 47 over the LCD 48. So our final answer is 47 over 48. Again, this answer is in lowest terms because 47 is a prime number. Example 3. Add 3/4 plus 4/5 plus 5/8. This time, notice that we have three fractions. It does not make a difference. Focus on the largest denominator, which in this case is 8. Calculate multiples of 8. We have 8, 16, 24, 32, 40, etc. 40 is the smallest multiple amongst 4, 5, and 8. 8, 16, 24, and 32 all work for the number 4, but not for the number 5. Okay, let's talk about the equivalent fractions. We have to multiply 4 by 10 to end up with our LCD, therefore we have to multiply the 3 by 10. So we end up with 30 over 40. For 4/5, we have to multiply 5 by 8 to get to the LCD, and therefore we have to multiply the top by 8 as well. We end up with 32 over 40. And then finally, we have to multiply 8 times 5 to get to the LCD, and we also have to multiply the top by 5. So we end up with 25 over 40. If we add the three fractions together, we get 30 plus 32 plus 25, which gives us 87 over the LCD 40. You can keep your answer as an improper fraction, 87 over 40, which is in lowest terms, or if you want, you can convert it to a mixed number. 40 goes into 87 twice, and that produces 80, and we have a remainder of 7. So we have 2 and 7/40. Either answer is acceptable and correct. The sum of a whole number and a fraction is a mixed number. For example, if we were to add 2 plus 2/3, our answer is simply 2 and 2/3. If you wanted to use the LCD, you would write 2 as 2 over 1, and you'd have to find the least common denominator between 1 and 3. The least common denominator is 3. So for the first fraction, 2 over 1, we'd multiply the numerator and the denominator by 3. Our new fraction would be 6 over 3. For 2/3, because the LCD is embedded in the fraction already, you can either just rewrite it as 2/3, or think of it as multiplying by 1 over 1. Now that we have the same denominator, we can add 6 plus 2. We end up with 8/3. And if you wanted to convert it back into a mixed number, you would have 2 2/3. Let's try another example. Add 7 2/5 plus 4. Well, you can look at this one easily, add the 7 and 4 together, and you end up with 11, and then you have 2/5. So your answer would be 11 2/5. If you'd like to use the LCD method, you would have 37 over 5. Notice that I converted 7 2/5 into an improper fraction. You would want to do that first. And also taking the whole number 4 and writing it as a fraction, so 4 over 1. So we have 37 over 5 and 4 over 1. The LCD between 5 and 1 is 5. So because we have 37 over 5 and 5 is already the denominator, you just rewrite it, or as I said before, multiply the top and bottom by 1. To get the LCD of 5 for 4 over 1, you multiply by 5 on the top and on the bottom. So your new fraction or equivalent fraction is 20 over 5. Now we are ready to add. We have 37 plus 20, which gives us 57 over 5. And again, you can convert back into a mixed number. 5 goes into 57 11 times because 5 times 11 is 55, and you have a remainder of 2, so 11 2/5. Let's try a more difficult example. 6 14/15 plus 5 4/9, both of which are mixed numbers. Also notice that the denominators of the fractional parts are unlike. So the very first thing you want to do is determine the LCD between 15 and 9. Well, let's do multiples of 15. We have 15, 30, 45. 45 is the least common multiple or least common denominator that you can use for 15 and 9. So that's what I have written here. The next thing you want to do is create equivalent fractions and focus only on the fractional parts. 6 can remain 6 and 5 can remain 5. They do not change at all, at least at this point. So 14 over 15, we have to multiply the 15 by 3, so we end up with 45 as our new denominator, and whatever we do to the bottom, we have to do to the top. So we end up with 42 over 45. In terms of 4/9, to get to 45 as our new denominator, we have to multiply 9 by 5. Whatever we do to the bottom, do the same thing to the top. So we're going to have 20 over 45. So now we are ready to add. Start by adding the whole numbers, 6 plus 5, then add the numerators of the fractional parts, 42 plus 20. You end up with 11 and 62 over 45. The issue with this answer is that the fractional part is an improper fraction. So what we have to do is convert the improper fraction fractional part into a mixed number itself. Well, 45 goes into 62 only one time. The remainder is 17 because 62 minus 45 is 17. What we do with the 1 is add it to the 11, the whole number. So we end up with 12 and then 17 over 45. So again, 45 goes into 62 one time. That 1 gets added to the 11. The remainder, 17, is the numerator of the fractional part, and then 45 stays the same. The last example for section 2.4 is 7 4/5 plus 6 7/10 plus 13 11/15. Well, let's look at the fractional parts. We have denominators of 5, 10, and 15. Take the largest of the three numbers and do multiples of it. So 15, 30, 45, 60. Let me backtrack. 15, 30. 30 is the LCD amongst 5, 10, and 15. So that's what we have here. So now we're going to create equivalent fractions. Remember, the 7, 6, and 13, i.e. the whole numbers, remain the same, at least right now. So, looking at 4/5, to create a new denominator of 30, we have to multiply the 5 by 6. Whatever we do to the bottom, do the same to the top. So our new fraction is 24/30. In terms of 7/10, the 10 has to become 30, so we're going to multiply by 3. Whatever you do to the bottom, do to the top. We end up with 21/30. And then 15 has to become 30, so 15 times 2. Whatever you do to the bottom, do to the top. So we end up with 22/30. We are now ready to add. Let's start by adding the whole numbers. We have 7 plus 6 plus 13. That gives us 26. And then we have 24 plus 21 plus 22. That gives us 67. So we are currently at 26 and 67/30. Notice that the fractional part of the mixed number answer is an improper fraction. So we have to convert that to a mixed number as well. 30 goes into 67 2 times. So we're going to add 2 to 26. So our new whole number is 28. Because 30 goes into 67 twice, which is 60, we have a remainder of 7. So our final answer is 28 and 7/30.